You have probably heard someone say that all religions are basically the same. They all teach people to be good. They are simply different paths to the same destination. At first glance, that sounds reasonable. Most religions encourage honesty, generosity, self-control, compassion, and concern for others. If we compare moral teachings alone, there is often significant overlap. But I would suggest that the deepest differences between worldviews are not found in their ethics. They are found in how they answer two questions: what is wrong with humanity? And what is the solution? My thesis is simple. Christianity is unique not primarily because of its moral teachings, but because it claims that humanity's deepest problem cannot ultimately be solved by humanity itself, and that the solution therefore originates with God rather than with us. The question that led me to this topic is surprisingly simple. Humanity has become vastly more capable, but have we become proportionately better? We can communicate instantly across the globe, we can transplant organs, we can edit genes, we can place spacecraft on other worlds. We possess scientific knowledge that would have seemed miraculous to previous generations. Yet many of humanity's oldest problems remain remarkably familiar. Violence, greed, corruption, pride, selfishness, broken relationships, injustice. And the question applies not only to societies but also to ourselves. Many of us know what it is like to fail to live up to our own standards, to say things we later regret, to hurt people we care about, to break promises, to act selfishly while criticizing selfishness in others, to know the right thing and still choose something else. Why do societies that value justice still produce injustice? Why do people who value honesty still lie? Why do people who desire healthy relationships so often damage them? Why do human beings repeatedly fail to live according to the ideals they themselves affirm? Nearly every religion, philosophy, and worldview can be understood as an attempt to answer those questions. Throughout history, people have proposed many explanations. Some believe the problem is ignorance, others believe it is misplaced desires, others point to social, political, or economic structures. Modern secular thought often places considerable confidence in education, science, and human progress. Each of these explanations contains insight. Each explains part of the picture. Christianity proposes a different diagnosis. It argues that humanity's deepest problem is not merely external, it is internal. The problem is not simply what we know, what we possess, or the institutions we build. The problem is rooted within humanity itself. Human beings often know what is right and still fail to do it. They often recognize what is destructive and yet continue to pursue it. We criticize selfishness while practicing it ourselves. We desire justice when we are mistreated, but are often willing to bend the rules when it benefits us. Christianity begins with a simple observation. The problem is not only out there, and it is also in here. The same pride that can divide nations can divide a marriage. The same selfishness that can corrupt institutions can damage a friendship. The same desire for power that appears in history books can appear in ordinary human hearts. Christianity argues that this points to a deeper problem than ignorance, education, or social systems alone can explain. If human beings were created for a relationship with the God who made them, then separation from that source of truth, goodness, and purpose would naturally affect every other area of life. In this view, humanity's conflict with itself reflects a deeper separation from its creator. The claim is not that every human problem has a simple religious explanation, nor is it that every act of kindness, beauty, wisdom, or goodness disappears when people are separated from God. Rather, the Christian explanation is that humanity's separation from its creator has introduced a disorder into human life that affects everything else. Our relationship with ourselves, our relationships with one another, the societies we build, even the way we understand purpose, meaning, and the good life. In other words, Christianity sees humanity's visible problems as branches growing from a deeper root. This leads to a crucial difference. Many worldviews assume that if humanity can identify the problem, humanity can eventually solve it. Christianity is more skeptical. Not because knowledge is unimportant, not because science, education, or moral effort are unimportant. All of these can produce genuine improvements, but they cannot fully resolve a problem that originates within humanity itself. If the diagnosis is correct, then humanity cannot be its own ultimate savior. And that leaves us at a crossroads. If humanity cannot solve its deepest problems, then one possible conclusion is that there is no ultimate solution. Perhaps humanity is simply trapped. Perhaps every advance will be accompanied by new failures. Perhaps every generation will repeat many of the mistakes of those before it. Perhaps history is ultimately a cycle without a final resolution. Many people experience a similar conclusion when they look at themselves. They see habits they cannot seem to break, patterns they cannot seem to escape, relationships they repeatedly damage, a gap between the person they want to be and the person they actually are. If humanity cannot solve its deepest problems, that conclusion is understandable. Christianity understands why some people arrive there, but it rejects that conclusion. It argues that if the solution cannot come from humanity, then perhaps it must come from beyond humanity. And this brings us to the central Christian claim. Christianity's answer centers on a person rather than a principle, Jesus of Nazareth. Christians believe that in Jesus, God entered human history and began addressing the very problem humanity could not solve for itself. Through his life, death, and resurrection, Christians believe God acted on humanity's behalf. In other words, Christianity claims that the solution did not originate with humanity's search for God. It originated with God's action toward humanity, but Christianity's claim goes even further than that. Christianity's hope is not merely that individuals are forgiven, it is that God ultimately restores what has been broken: humanity, relationships, creation itself. The Christian story begins with creation and ends with renewal. The Christian hope is that the fractures we experience today are not permanent. The separation between humanity and God, the divisions between people, the conflict within ourselves, even the brokenness we see throughout the natural world. Christianity claims that God intends to heal all of it. Justice replacing injustice, life overcoming death, what is broken being restored, what is corrupted being made whole. Christians believe that the work God began through Jesus Christ will ultimately culminate in the restoration of humanity, the healing of creation, and the defeat of everything that distorts goodness, truth, beauty, and life. The Christian hope is therefore not confidence in humanity's ability to build a perfect future. It is confidence in God's promise to make all things new. At this point, an obvious question arises. If this is what God is doing, how does a person participate in it? Christianity's answer differs from what many people expect. It does not begin with proving one's worthiness, nor does it begin with the belief that enough effort, discipline, or religious activity can repair what is broken. It begins with an admission of need, the recognition that the same brokenness we see in the world also exists within us, and that neither we nor humanity as a whole can ultimately make it right. This is where faith enters the picture, not as wishful thinking, not as pretending that suffering, injustice, or human failure are not real, but as trust that God intends to accomplish what humanity cannot accomplish on its own. Christianity therefore begins not with self-sufficiency but with dependence, not with confidence that humanity will eventually find its own way out of the problem, but with trust that God has already begun the work of restoration. This does not mean goodness is unimportant. Justice matters, compassion matters, truth matters, human flourishing matters. The question is whether these things can ultimately repair what is broken. Christianity says they cannot. They are part of the solution to many problems, but they cannot solve the deepest problem. Doing what is right does not erase what is wrong, nor does it place God in our debt. It is simply what human beings were meant to do all along. This leads us back to the original question. Humanity has become remarkably capable, but can humanity ultimately heal itself? Christianity's answer is no. Its claim is that the problem is deeper than ignorance, technology, political systems, or human effort can solve. And because the problem is deeper, the solution must be deeper as well. The solution, Christianity claims, did not originate in human wisdom. It did not arise from human progress. It did not emerge from humanity finally discovering the right philosophy. The solution originated with God,